Hey gang, welcome back to Let's Level Up. My name is Rick, and today I'm very excited to talk to you about Simply Suspects. This is an awesome deduction game for 2 to 6 players, and it's going to allow you to really kind of manipulate the board as you're going around. It plays and actually has a really interesting static board component that a lot of the older board games kind of had. If you think of the Monopolies and the Saris and the Troubles, there's static spaces throughout the game. But it actually takes a little bit of the luck element out of the game in the form of a getaway card. So I get to move either on a roll or using one of my face-up cards that has a number on it, which I can basically dictate where I'm going to go, depending on whether or not I have the appropriate card that takes me where I want to be. So I have a little bit more control in this game of my positioning in the board. But really what we're going to be doing is kind of collecting and planting evidence on other suspects and keeping evidence off ourselves throughout the game. Once we go to the grand jury space, we'll be able to try to identify one of the players' identities. If we're correct, then we get them out of the game. If we're incorrect, then we are out of the game. Also, if we have two or more evidence pegs on our suspect on the evidence board and we land on the grand jury tile, we are out of the game. So we have to be very, very mindful on how we kind of manipulate the other players in the game to make sure that we put evidence on the characters that we want and keep evidence off of the characters we don't want. This is a really, really awesome game, and I'm really excited to show it to you. So let's hit the table, and then we'll be back with our final thoughts. All right, in Simply Suspects, our goal is to protect our secret identity here and find out the role of the identities of all the other players that are in the game. In order to do that, we're going to do one of two things. We're going to either roll our die and land on a space, or use one of our getaway cards to give us a set number of movement. So at the beginning of the game, we'll get 3 of these identity cards face up, and I can use these to move the appropriate number that's listed on the card. All of my opponents will have face-up getaway cards as well, and we will all have one hidden identity. In this case, our identity is Jake the Snake. And we'll put that face down here. We'll deal identities out to all the other players in the game. So every player has one, and we'll begin play. Now you can roll, you can determine however you want the starting player to be. We usually just do a roll off at my house. So I got a 3, this player got a 4, the next player got a 3. So each of these guys would also receive 3 getaway cards, which again, they're going to keep face up. So we're going to start with the yellow player here. They'll decide to go ahead and roll a die. They're going to move 1, 2, 3 spots. And then they got on the your choice. A lot of this game is built around this evidence track here, which dominates the center of the board. There are 7 pieces of evidence which we'll be able to try to pin on somebody. So the your choice option allows us to move any of those evidence pegs to any position. Now, here's the catch. If we ever have 2 evidence pegs on our character, in this case it's Jake the Snake at the bottom, and we hit to the grand jury spot, we are out of the game. So we want to make sure that we keep evidence pegs off our own characters and move them onto the other players that we think are actually playing the game. In this case, we have Vinny the Skinny, Misdemeanor, Pearly White, Wilbury Meadows, Booker Dano, and Jake the Snake. So let's say, and I don't know what this character is, but let's say this character is going to go ahead and move the 3rd evidence peg down to us at Jake the Snake, thinking that Jake the Snake is one of the players. He may not know it's me, but he'll know that it's definitely somebody here. Now I may want to go ahead and use one of my getaway cards at this point. It's going to be my turn. And I'm going to go ahead and let's use our 3, and we're going to go ahead and get to the your choice as well. Now I can take this off if I wanted to. I may want to play it like I don't really care if you put Jake the Snake on there. Now, if he gets 2 on there, then it's a different deal. But I may want to go ahead and say, you know what, let me go ahead and move 5 or 6 to Pearly White. And the reason why I said 5 or 6, because this path splits off, and I have a greater chance of being able to move one of these, again, later in the game. And you know what, I probably should have done 4. I probably should have done 4 because that would have allowed me to move 3 later if I went to this path instead. So the idea here is that we're going to be moving these evidence pegs as we go through the board in order to try to find out who we are. Once we get to this grand jury space, if we're without a shadow of a doubt, if I know that this player right here is Wilbury Meadows, I can say you're Wilbury Meadows when I get to this card, have them flip over, and look at that, I actually guessed it right. They are Wilbury Meadows. In this case, they would be out of the game if I landed here. If I was incorrect, I am out of the game and I officially lost. So when you get to the grand jury, 1, you got to make sure that there's not 2 evidence on you, and 2, if you're going to make a guess, make sure you know without a shadow of a doubt that you are correct. So basically, what you're going to be wanting to do throughout the game are things like misdirect, make them think that I'm Booker Dano rather than Jake the Snake. Really put pressure here, so that way, if let's say there were 2 already on Booker Dano, and maybe Booker Dano's not even in place, I may want to move one of those off onto somebody else and just say, you know what, I don't think it's Booker. I think we're wasting that evidence. Again, trying to throw off our opponents so that way they make us think that we think that they're Booker Dano, and they don't really know that we're Jake the Snake the whole time. This game is really, really fun, and it has a lot of opportunity for really good deduction. I also like this because it's very scalable. The book says 8 to adult. I played this with my 6-year-old son, and he really, really enjoyed it. In fact, we played with our 4-year-old daughter, and I kind of gave her the win, but she really enjoyed it as well, although she wasn't quite sure on what she was doing. So 4 may be too young, but I think 6 and up is probably a good sweet spot if your 6-year-old is an avid gamer like my son is. So again, there's lots of chance here. We're going to be able to roll the die and move or use our getaway cards. There are spaces on the board, allows us to get more getaway cards or take getaway cards from somebody. You'll notice that some of these getaway cards have a 0 on them. If that's the case, you're going to stay where you are and you're going to use whatever the piece is. So for instance, if I had this 0 and my next turn I place it, I'd get another your choice space, which is nice. You'll also notice that down here at the bottom, there are a ton of spaces which just instantly advance you to grand jury. So you're going to be hitting that grand jury space a lot in this game. So again, we're moving these evidence pegs, trying to figure out who our people are, to deduce who the other players' identities are, and keeping the heat off us. That's the biggest thing. If we land on this and we have 2 evidence, we are out. And if we land on this and we guess somebody correctly, they're out of the game. If we guessed incorrectly, we are out of the game. So it's a very, very high-risk spot being at the grand jury. And you're going to keep going around and around and around until there's only 1 player left. Really, really easy game to play. Lots of really satisfying deduction in Simply Suspects. I highly recommend this game. So please follow us now back to the game room, and we're going to give you our final thoughts. Well, that is it for Simply Suspects. This game is designed by Bill Stephenson, and it's from the makers of Spy Alley. So the components and the overall feel of the game is very familiar to that if you've played Spy Alley or Spy Alley Jr. We will also be taking a look at those 2 games later on the channel because I really like this line of deduction games, and I think it's really good fun for the entire family. This game plays safely 8 and up. I played it with my son, and I think he enjoyed it, so I can say he's a bit of a gamer, so probably 7 and up is maybe a good line to draw, but 8 and up's fine as well. The 2 to 6 suspects makes it 2 to 6 players makes it a really, really good game for a lot of different size game groups, and there's a lot of deducing that goes on in this thing. So I really enjoy it. I think it's something that as we're keeping a mind of what's happening on the game board, we have a lot of opportunities to, again, do one of my favorite things in board gaming, and one of my favorite things that this medium does better than any other, and that's just manipulate the players around you. Maybe, I say any other medium, you may want to include poker in that because it is technically a tabletop game, but poker is another one of those games that just gives you total control, and you play the players more than you're actually playing the game. Simply Suspects, I can relate a lot to that with. As long as I can throw the heat off my character and put it on another character, whether it's another player's or one of the extras that aren't being played, I'm going to be increasing my chances to win. The grand jury, take a shot and lose the game if you miss, is an interesting concept as well. I think it has a really, really high reward, but there's also a great risk in it. The game itself can play fairly quickly, and I think it's definitely one that you guys, if you don't have it on yourself right now, you should definitely consider getting it. And check out the Spy Alley Games website for information on where to get Simply Suspects, or drop by your friendly local game store for more information, because I'm sure they could probably order it for you as well. I'd like to thank you guys all for watching this video. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, but most importantly, please, game on.